Hey guys, before we dive into this video, I just wanted to mention that I'll be at the Mobile Hunters Expo this weekend in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'll be doing a speaking event on Friday afternoon and also a seminar on e-scouting on Saturday. There's also a couple of other great speakers, Dan Infalt, Dieter Kocken, Sam Ubel as well. There's a film festival, and as the name implies, it's an expo, which means there's going to be a lot of vendors there, specifically focused on mobile hunting, who will have booths that you can go walk around and try out all their gear. They'll have items available for sale. And when I'm not out there speaking, I'll be hanging around at most likely the Spartan Forge booth and maybe the Tethered booth a little bit as well. So if you're in the area or looking for something to do this weekend, make sure to go check that out. Sam from Titanium Archery Products sent me this PSE Upgrade Kit when he found out that I was ordering an Omen, which is one of the primary bows that he shoots. He has kits that upgrade all of the newer PSEs, and the biggest things are a titanium draw stop, which gives you a little bit more solid back wall feel and gets rid of that little squishy rubber piece, a replacement cable rod, as well as a little bit better slide, and also an upgraded string stop. And of course, just like I had on my Matthews, I'm still using the DOA stabilizer setup from Titanium Archery Products. And I'll be testing the stock string stop on this PSE Omen against the Titanium Archery Products string stop. I'll test both of them in a number of different positions, with the string up against the string stop or with a slight gap, up versus down, 3-shot averages, and we'll compare the results. Alright, so the first setting I'll test here is the stock string stop with no gap. Round 2, and this time there is a slight, about a credit card width gap between the string and the string stop. Now for this test, I have the Titanium Archery Products string stop with no gap. String is touching the rubber, and it's in the upward position. Alright, for this test we have the Titanium Archery Products string stop in the up position with just a slight gap, about a credit card width, from the bulk of the rubber to the string itself. Now we have the Titanium Archery Products string stop in the downward position with the string rubbing up against and lightly touching the rubber. So no gap. For this test we have the Titanium Archery Products string stop in the up position with no gap. String is lightly resting against the rubber. And here we have the Titanium Archery Products string stop in the up position with a fairly large gap, more than a credit card. And lastly, we have the Titanium Archery Products string stop in the downward position with a slight gap. So now when I look at this data, you can tell that on average, and just looking at the individual data points, the tap string stop in any of its configurations, up or down, touching the string or not touching the string, is quieter than the stock string stop. Now, we're talking like a decibel difference, depending on what you read and who you ask. The human ear can discern like a 1 to 3 decibel difference. So practically that means that this amount of difference would be hard for you to pick out in a blind test. It is there measurably, but it's close. So I'll play a video clip of me shooting the bow with the camera at the target at 20 yards facing back at the archer. Now for the single piece titanium draw stops. Now initially I was thinking that the titanium stop was really just going to be for somebody who wanted a nice solid back wall instead of a spongy back wall, and that's kind of a matter of preference. There's some guys that like having just a little bit of sponginess to be able to pull into. But no kidding, on day 2, actually when I was still filming my original PSE Omen setup video, I noticed that when I had the bow in the drawboard and I was checking the timing, that little rubber cylinder was like halfway squeezed out of its hole. I almost lost it. So that was obviously a huge concern for me, and the fact that the one-piece titanium draw stop gets rid of that potential failure issue, to me that's a big deal. The firm back wall versus the spongy back wall, for me, I guess I don't really mind one way or the other. I tend to shoot a firm back wall just fine because I'm not pulling through the shot with the compound. I just hold static against the back wall, keep that pressure applied, and then execute my release. So I'm fine with that ultra solid back wall. And while I would have said it's a matter of preference, the fact that that little rubber piece can easily squeeze out, and I don't know how often that occurs, but it certainly occurred with mine. I think for that reason, moving to this single piece draw stop would definitely be an upgrade for anybody. All right, so in this clip here, I'm basically just unscrewing the original draw stops and I'm replacing them with the string stops from TAP. It's pretty easy to do. You just need a set of Torx wrenches. And one last final step that I'm doing is putting on some stealth strips on the face of that actual draw stop. I've noticed this on some bows, especially when it gets really cold out and you don't have any more foliage left on the tree and everything seems like it's super loud. When I come back to full draw and those stops hit the cables, especially if you come back to full draw kind of aggressively, it makes just the tiniest little like click. And I can pick it up on the cameras and I can hear it myself. I don't know how well the deer can actually hear it, but it is something that I will notice. So for me, just adding that little bit of stealth strip material is a little bit of added peace of mind. Now for the slide kit, you actually just have the rear portion of that slide and then also the rollers. So installing it was super easy. I just had to remove the cable slide from my bow and then just take away that little lateral adjustment screw so that I could take off the rear portion. I replaced that with the rear portion that came from TAP, which also had the new rollers on it, and then I mounted it back onto the bow. Now you need to make sure that the rollers are installed in the exact same configuration that your stock bow was set up with. And then with my bow, I didn't have the lateral adjustment all the way to the left or the right. I had it in a very specific position to give me just enough clearance for my vanes. So I had pre-marked that to make sure that I was ending up right around in the same spot before locking everything down and putting my cables back under tension. Now, you do want to verify your tune after doing something like this because the lateral adjustment and how much tension you're putting on those cables sideways can affect your left and right tune. And in my case, luckily I did a good enough job of pre-marking where I needed to end up at. And when I went to verify my tune, it was still spot on. Now, it's kind of tough to quantify the differences in the TAP cable slide versus the stock one. It is smooth to draw, and I'll leave you here with this slow motion clip just showing those rollers sliding along that cable slide in ultra slow motion. And you can see that when the shot actually goes off, that cable slide stops its oscillations and movement well before the string actually stops even moving. So in summary, I think all of these things were nice little upgrades compared to the stock components. I don't think there's necessarily any issues with the components as stock, with the exception of the draw stops. I really don't like that little rubber piece. Yeah, it gives you a little bit softer feel against the back wall, and some people prefer that. But when I saw that thing starting to slip out after just a couple of days of initially shooting the bow, I really didn't like that at all. What if that happens to you on a hunt and you don't realize it? It just didn't really make me feel easy. I much prefer having this firm titanium machined draw stop with just a little piece of stealth strip over the top. It gives me a little bit more peace of mind. So if you guys have any additional questions, please drop them in the comment section down below, and thanks for watching.